All right, Joel Gausten here from joelgausten.com. I'm really psyched to get into a conversation with my guests. They're members of a band I've been following for a few years now. Have a great vibe that I love. Growing up a horror punk fan in Jersey and hanging around the Misfits and that whole scene. This is a band that I think is not only carrying the torch for a lot of those things, but doing it in very unique ways. Great sound, great vibe. I'm sure this is going to be a great conversation. It's my pleasure to welcome from the band Chesty Malone and the Spice 'em Ups. I have Jaqueline Blownaparte and
Ooh.
Anthony Allen Van Hoek.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got a lot to get into. There's a lot of cool things happening with the band in the present tense, and there's a lot of great history with the band.
Uh-huh.
So I figure we'll kind of start at the very beginning of things. I know the group started in New York in 2006.
Mhm.
And you guys have been kind of the mainstay members of the group since that time, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It was our creation from the beginning, and it has, like you said, it's ended up where we're definitely the core members. That was never our intention. We wanted to form a band. People come and go though, and people maybe have different ideas about how things should go, and so they
Such
go.
as being in a band.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Definitely. And I know you both had some experience playing with groups prior to this band forming. Um, when you guys joined forces to do Chesty Malone and the Spice 'em Ups, did you have kind of a stated purpose musically and aesthetically, or is the band that we know today something that sort of kind of gradually got to where we are now?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. We certainly absolutely had a mission from the beginning, at least when it was decided that I was going to be in the band. Like, we formed the band when we were living in Astoria, Queens, and she was originally wanted to form a new band when her other band had broken up. And since she didn't play guitar or any instruments, I was writing songs for her to be able to audition people and write words and stuff for her. And I wasn't going to be in the band. So maybe at that point we weren't sure what it was going to be, except we had named the band, we made that up together, and I had already made the logo for the band before there was a band, even though technically, yeah, it was already us.
Hmm.
Uh so yeah, long story short, when I was in the band finally, musically, I set out consciously. I wanted the band to be solely influenced by like 80s hardcore bands like Black Flag, Negative Approach, Sam Hain, which you could say maybe he wasn't a hardcore band, but they only played hardcore shows. So, Necros, stuff like that. And then a little bit of crossover thrash, like early Metallica and COC. Certainly the Animosity album was a big influence. But initially, yeah, I literally shamelessly wanted it to sound like those were like our only influences musically,
Yep.
you know.
If you recall, when we went to go record our first album, this is jumping in history, but when we went to record our first album, because I wanted to get into that zone, remember I listened to absolutely nothing but Negative Approach for like 3 months. That's all I listened to, like 10 hours a day. I was like, I want to sound as fucking as John Browning. So
So that was what we were initially doing aesthetically. It was
yeah.
just kind of what our whole caveman vibe that she and I have always just had.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of had that from the beginning too. Um, Things have changed a little bit. We used to douse ourselves with blood before every show,
Hmm.
which we kind of don't really do anymore.
No, but
But
still carry our little bit of caveman aesthetic.
yeah,
Like he
yeah,
made me a necklace out of bones that I like to wear, and you know,
yeah. I made we had a barbecue ribs one night, and I saved the bones and stripped the meat and grizzle off of it, which was fun. And
for the first couple of months of wearing it, like I just smelled like barbecue, and then like anything I touched smelled like barbecue, and then my bag of like my sweaty shit after we played smelled like
it was a
barbecue,
learning
and then it
it was a learning process
eventually
too.
got less disgusting.
When I made that necklace, it's always a work in progress because sometimes a bone will break and stuff or whatever. But
Yeah.
also like learning how to I eventually you leave the bones out in the sun with some peroxide and water. So because you have to the marrow has to dry up, otherwise the bones stink along with
Yes.
the barbecue smell. There's a kind of a not so good smell
Yeah.
also, but eventually you learn how to do
They
it.
either don't smell anymore, or I'm completely desensitized
They
to
don't. They know. I know. I figured it out. I know.
it.
I got the formula
Yeah.
now. If anyone's
Yeah.
looking for a bone necklace, I know how to do it.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
one thing I've always dug about the band is, when I just introed you, I mentioned horror punk. And I
Mhm.
think it's safe to say you comfortably kind of fit into that aesthetic. But I think at the same time, when people say horror punk, they kind of think Misfits derivative, the whoa, and
Right.
that could be kind of samey after a while, as much as I love that
Sure.
stuff. But with you guys, you've got that, but you also have, to my ears, like you mentioned, Negative Approach. I can
Mm.
also see you doing gigs with like Confederacy of Scum type bands, the
Yeah.
Anti-Teens and people like that. And
Um, look, Hammerlock from California is one of our good friends. That we're
Yeah,
friends with.
love
That. Yeah.
Hammerlock,
Yeah.
one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
that's excellent. So
Yeah.
putting all that together, must have been a very odd thing in New York in 2006, because I can tell you from my experience, I had moved back east from LA that year, and I had been playing in the 90s with Bobby Steele and the Undead. And when I came back, I rejoined the Undead, and we were playing CBs, kind of like, the final gasps of CBGBs. And we
Yeah.
played there twice that year. And I was going to clubs, and things had changed, man. It wasn't like it was even in the 90s where, there was a lot of kind of, bands that were pushing the envelope, I thought, in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Um, I came back to New York in 2006. No disrespect to these bands, they're great, but you had like the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and the Strokes and that kind of stuff, which to
Yeah.
me was very safe-ish music compared
Oh,
to
totally.
what it was back then. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what was it like for you to be a band that had all these different influences coming out at
Well,
that time
I
when things were vastly different?
I like that you use the word safe, because something we get always since the band started is that we're like dangerous and like vicious and whatever. And I feel like we started having that title because that was the scene then. I don't know if you agree with that, but and then just like what our shows are like, but like that whole like stiffness of like cute rock and roll, and then us was like colliding universes.
and it's funny too.
Yeah.
You just put an idea in my head when you were talking about that. Like, if you remember in the '90s when the Red Hot Chili Peppers got big, every band had to have a slapping
Mm,
bass player,
funky.
and
Yeah.
and then obviously hair metal was still big. So like the Strokes and yeah, yes, I'm not hating on anybody, and success is awesome, so that's great. But everybody wants to be like that because that's the formula for the time.
Right.
So it's like the new Sunset Strip was the Strokes and the AAS,
Right.
and there were a lot of bands like that. Like we were friends with bands that were doing like kind of old school punk rock and stuff at the time too.
Mhm.
So we weren't quite exactly the only ones. We're the only ones like us
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, that's where we also for our whole run as this band has had this like we don't belong anywhere. Like we always get punks being like that's a metal band, and we get metalheads being like that's the punk band, and it's like we're just like no man's fucking land. I don't know what we
Well,
are,
that is
but
true.
it's
We're
fucking
cursed with that.
yeah,
Punks say we're metal, and metalheads call us punks.
yeah. So it's like
So
this heavy music, like fucking I don't know what word I'm looking for, where it's just like we're too heavy for people that think they're seeing like the Casualties, but we're too not heavy for people who think they're seeing Deicide or something. I don't know.
I mean, we fit in our own little place. We carved our
Yeah,
own little
for sure. That's why we're
we
still
carved our own
playing.
little
Yeah.
hole in the distorted world.
Well, let's stay there for a minute, because one thing I've always liked about the band is how visible you are.
Mhm.
You're not a band that um casually just kind of posts updates and things. And you've got the name, you've got the visuals, you've got a very steady amount of attention coming your way. And I think that's kind of been the case for as long as I've been familiar with the band, which goes back a few years now.
Mhm.
So because you're 18 years into this, um what has been the key to being a band that's consistently kind of making themselves known, because especially these days with Facebook and everything else, it's impossible. I get anywhere from 50 to 75 promos in my inbox a week, but I'm always paying attention to you guys, So what has been the trick to keeping this band, kind of more afloat compared to some of the other things that are happening?
One thing I can tell you is that like this whole band is like in jokes and shit talking between us. Like
Literally.
that's what we do. We hang around, listen to music, and talk shit about people and places and music, and have our own little in jokes. And we both keep lists of like song titles and lyric ideas from things that we say to each other all the time and stuff like that.
I also feel like for what you asked of like how are we always so like present, I feel like from what I said before, we still don't like have our home in any scene. We don't belong in any scene specifically.
Yeah.
So if we don't promote the fuck out of ourselves, who's promoting us because they don't know where they want us?
Yeah.
You know?
You know what? One thing that I thought, okay, so I interviewed Erie Vaughn. I do interviews myself a couple years ago, and I asked him about how like all their gear had like Sam Hain or Danzig like all over it, and as opposed to other bands that put other band stickers on their stuff. And he goes, "Well, I never cared about what other bands were doing. I just cared about us."
Right.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
Like people are like, oh, you don't wear your own band shirt. I'm like, fuck you. I wear my own band shirt like every single day. I wear my band colors every single day. And if anybody wants to talk to me about anything, I'm starting with, have you heard my band? You want a CD? So,
Well, if you're not treating what you're doing as a priority,
right.
there are hundreds of people out there who do treat what they do as a priority. So you better be on top of it. And I love Erie too. I just reconnected with him recently, man. He's
That's cool. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
awesome.
Erie's really cool.
Yeah.
but he's exactly right. And I grew up down the road from the Misfits brothers, and
Mhm.
to see those guys work, it was always a self-contained unit. It was never like, well, what's the scene doing? I mean, when I knew those guys in the mid-90s, they didn't even know what Lollapalooza was.
Oh yeah.
They were just so focused on Misfits all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that worked out well for them,
Yeah, that's
obviously.
awesome. That's totally cool.
And I feel like we're very misfitsy in our, since he's our artist, luckily, like he's constantly like, I have an idea for a chesty art. And then it's like, okay, so let's make an album because I have an idea for a
That's
chesty
true.
art,
Yeah.
and let's cover everything in chesty art. Or like, guys, there's prints. Like, even if it's not fucking music, it's a shirt, it's a print, it's a something. Like, we always have something we're trying to fucking do. We
Yeah.
want to sit on our asses. We hate fucking sitting on our
We
asses.
don't
People
do
are
it.
like, what are you doing? If we sit on the couch, I'm like, I feel like a piece of shit. We got to go do something,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
Could have
absolutely.
a lot.
No.
So you guys is it 4 full-length albums into this at this
Yeah,
point?
four full lengths and what, 3 or 4 EPs now?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know there's a relatively new EP
Yes.
out on Cleopatra.
Yeah, pretty much brand spanking new, a couple weeks old. Our little baby.
Yes.
The hell is full and we need the room EP.
Yeah.
Excellent. I've been giving that quite a few spins here, and
Awesome.
I think it's your best work. I mean, I've been
Hey, thank you.
listening back to your evolution musically. I think you're really hitting some interesting areas right now. A lot of pieces are really fitting. Not that they didn't in the past, but you
Yeah,
want to evolve and you want to grow as a band. I think you're arriving someplace very interesting currently.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah, I love the record, and I love the video as well for the title track.
Cool,
Um,
man.
and
Thanks.
I'll put links up in the video for people to check out your videos.
Cool,
Um,
cool.
and I love the fact the band's gone that way too. It's not just, let's do a record. I can tell you put a lot of care into your visual presentation, and
Yeah,
that's
man.
so missed. I grew up listening and watching the Plasmatics and what they
Uh-huh.
together for a show. And, you
Yeah.
know, the fact that in 2024 there's a band kind of following that tradition
Hmm.
is really cool. And I want to kind of dive into that video specifically. Um, Anthony, you directed that one, correct?
Yeah. Hmm.
Excellent. And it seems like it's a very sort of indie DIY aesthetic you're bringing to it.
Yeah, what she said a second ago, before I'd kind of, I don't even know if, I guess maybe we had the song written and I had the ideas.
He's
I,
been wanting to film this video
yeah,
for like 5 months prior
longer
to
than,
when we
yeah,
recorded it. He
yeah.
was like, we got to do it.
We
We got to do it. We
started
got to do it.
filming
I was like,
yeah.
we don't even have the song recorded. He's like, it
It's-
doesn't matter. I got the
well,
video. I do.
as soon
I
as
was like,
I told you,
yeah.
we record,
Yeah.
the way we record currently, our last few recordings with JB, John Bechdel from Ministry, is he and he'll record me playing guitar to a click track. And then we'll send it off to the drummer or if there's a bass player here, or if we send it off to him. Uh, so as soon as we had a demo, or not even demo, just a mix of just my guitar and a click track, I was like, now we can start filming the video, because I had all the ideas, and it was funny if you watch it. There's the animation with the
Oh, that was
Chesty
going on
Malone
for like
character
6 months prior to that, even kind of.
she's
Yeah.
in hell with devils and stuff, and
Yeah.
I had the idea for that, and I kept trying to. I do artwork obviously, but I don't know how to do animation, so I was trying to get somebody to do that for us, and finally found somebody who would do it, Danny, and
She actually put the video together for us
she
too.
she asked me what I wanted, and I drew what I thought was just a quick sketch. I literally took 10 or 15 minutes and sketched it and said, this like this, but I thought she would make it her own, and she actually just
used
animated my
yeah.
sketch, which was cool.
Which ended up looking totally
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. And like I said, I like the fact that you're doing more than just putting out a record, which I think is so crucial now. You've got to bring more to the table than just here's my EP, go to Spotify. I mean,
Yeah.
I get
People's
bored with that.
attention spans are so fucking
Yeah.
short, you got to have something visual.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned JB, and it's kind of interesting because I just earlier today recorded an interview with Martin Atkins
Mhm.
from Pigface, who I played with for many years.
Yeah.
And John, of course, came out of, he got into ministry and all that kind of through Martin, working in Brian Brain together back in Jersey in the 80s. So the world gets a bit smaller even more,
Yeah.
just today having these conversations. How did JB enter the picture for you?
You know what? So this
It's
is
a
this
funny
is
story.
random as
Yeah.
heck. I like 5 years ago when we moved to our location in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania,
Mhm.
I initially was doing like odd jobs, handyman, construction type stuff with this old grizzled mountain dude, like beard and long white hair and stuff. And we were in this lady's house, who's now become our friend Sandy. But
Yeah.
we were installing a washer dryer in her house, and she started asking me about my tattoos and stuff. And like, she was like, "Oh, are you in a band and stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh, my boyfriend's in a band too."
And because of where we
and
live, we were like, cool, he's in like a
well,
fucking 80s
yeah,
cover band
yeah,
or
well, no,
something.
she wasn't there, but so she's like, "Yeah, my
When he told
boyfriend's
me.
in a band," and I'm like, "Yeah, super cool, whatever."
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was summer of I guess 2019, and that was also coincidentally when Slayer's final tour was happening, and the Ministry opened that tour. And I heard her on the phone after she was saying all that stuff, and she's like, "Yeah, hey babe, yeah, I know. I'm just trying to decide if I want to go to Madison Square Garden or the Forum, and then I'll let you know. I know I can only go to one show." And then I'm like thinking, I was like, wait, I knew there were only two Slayer shows left, and I knew those where they were. So she gets off the phone, and I'm like, "Is your boyfriend in ministry?" I knew there was no way she was going out with a guy, anyone in Slayer, and I know that ministry has a million people coming and going. So I was like, her boyfriend's got to be in ministry, and yeah, that was him. So that's how we met him.
And then they become like our besties.
Yeah.
Sandy actually filmed part of that video
Yeah.
for us too and stuff.
Oh, and actually JB, he plays the role of the drummer
Oh
in
yeah,
that
he
video.
does.
That's him
That's
behind
him.
the kit.
Oh, wow.
Because we didn't have our new drummer yet.
Yeah.
We do now, Noah. But
we didn't have Noah yet.
so John played the drummer.
Because like I said, I wanted to get the video filmed.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, you're gonna play the role of drummer in
So
our
the
video.
5 seconds of drummer is
Yeah,
John
that's
Bechdel
him.
is your trivia.
He was like, "What do you want me to do?" I was like, "Go like this."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. And again, it's really a small world.
Yeah.
We were talking a bit before we started recording, but I'll bring it up in the conversation. Atkins and I played with Greta Brinkman, in Pigface, and I
Yeah,
got an EP with Greta coming out in a few months, and your brother was in Wasted Talent with
yeah,
Greta.
with Greta. That was they when they're both a few years older than me, and they used to practice in our parents' basement in this town that we're in now, actually. And that Waste of Talent demo got reissued on vinyl a few years ago. I actually did the artwork for that too.
Cool.
So I used to do their flyers when I was like 14 years old and
Um,
stuff like that. But yeah, yeah.
in
And then
our
oh yeah, with the Small World thing, she
Yeah.
met Greta before she met me.
Yeah,
Even.
and he at one we both used to practice at Funkadelic, and he didn't know me yet, but he saw Greta there, and then later he was like, "Oh, you know Greta?" And I was like, "Oh, Greta was coming to our band practice to hang out with
Yeah.
us." So that was another small world. New York is the smallest place
Yeah,
ever.
New
Yeah.
York's a small town, as an old friend of mine used to say.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
everybody knows somebody that knows somebody. You know.
Absolutely. Staying on New York for a minute, I know that you work professionally in graphic arts, and you've done album covers and things, including you've done some work on Harley Flanagan's record a few years back.
Yeah, Harley from the Cro-Mags. That record that I worked on for him, it was his solo record. I think it was actually Harley Flanagan was the band name for that. And that one was pretty easy. He had all the ideas and elements, and he just sent them over to me. I did a few things. I put them all together, made a few changes, and fixed things up and made it look nice. And then in the early 2000s, I did a bunch of work with Harley on websites. Me and him, it was his idea, so I'm not trying to steal his credit or anything, Harley, if you're watching. But we worked on a site called the Hardcore Hall of Fame
Hmm.
in the early 2000s, where we were interviewing like old school hardcore guys. At the time we were asking everybody the same 10 questions, which of course starts to get a little repetitive after a while. But it was a cool site for a little while, and I did some various graphics for him for a few years back then.
Excellent, excellent. Who are some of the other artists you've done work for as far as graphic design and various things?
Like I said, yeah, I did the Waste of Talent record. I did their stuff when I was a teenager. Originally, that's what I used for the elements when I put together their album. And I actually, a couple years ago, I still had the original drawings from those, and I traded them to the guy in from Ancient Artifacts. If you know that guy, he sells like hardcore records and flyers and stuff. I traded, amongst other flyers and stuff, I traded my original Waste of Talent drawings, which he said he was sending to the Punk Museum in Vegas, which is cool. I don't know if they're actually up anywhere in there, but that's pretty cool. I traded him that stuff for the first SSD Control record.
Hmm.
Kids will have their say. But yeah, I did that stuff. I did a bunch of bands probably no one's ever heard of. I do all the Chesty artwork like we were talking about. What else have I done?
You've done a million things around. And back in New York, he did it like everyone's band flyers and
Yeah,
stuff. So
yeah.
he just everywhere. Yeah.
I should search myself on Discogs just to
There
jog
you
my
go.
memory. But yeah, Harley's probably the biggest name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Interesting guy.
Yeah,
He actually I used to work for a webzine years ago. This goes back to 2006 when I came back. Um, and we were doing a feature on CB's closing. And it was like, well, who do we talk to? I'm like, well, it's obvious. We got to reach out to Jimmy Destry from Blondie, see if he wants to write something. We got to talk to this guy and that guy. And I'm like, and we gotta get Harley. We can't do anything on CB's without bringing in hardcore, you
yeah,
know.
Sure.
So I reached out to on MySpace, is how long ago it was.
yeah,
Reached out to Harley. I'm like, hey, blah blah blah. I play at Bobby Steele. Um, I'm doing this, thing for work on CB's. Do you have time to write like a little remembrance? This fucking guy in less than 24 hours sends me like a book chapter length
yeah,
I believe that. Yeah.
yeah,
on like the history of the old days of New York hardcore and how gentrification is changing everything now. I mean, this is long before he put out his book, but I'm reading it and I'm like, the most like there Johnny on the spot, didn't have to ask a second time. He was there,
yeah.
So I'll always, give props to Harley because he gave us a beautiful essay. I had to edit a few things, I could, it was kind of like a general audience kind of thing, so I had to kind of, tweak it a little bit, but man, it was beautiful.
Yeah,
He talked about being a kid playing with the stimulators and
right,
going,
right.
you know,
Very
I
cool.
remember it. Speaking of Harley and CBGB's slightly edited story, a couple of days. I was 13 at the time. At a hardcore matinee, it was Necros, Urban Waste, and Reagan Youth, and I had a Sharpie, and I had a band called Positive Hate at the time, and I was writing it on the wall outside of CB's, and I get a tap on my shoulder, and I turn out it was Harley, and he very politely said, "Oh, whenever you're done, could I borrow your marker? I want to write my new band," and he wrote Cro-Mags on the wall because that's going to be my new band. I knew who he was from the Stimulators, and there were no Cro-Mags at the time, so that was pretty cool. I brought that up with him when I knew him later in the early 2000s, and he didn't remember that specific thing, but he was like, "Oh yeah, I used to tag Cro-Mags all over New York for years."
yeah, yeah, it's an era that's gone now,
Yeah,
it's, um,
Sad.
yeah,
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. A lot of good times at CBs and that whole crowd. Back when you were playing a show and it was like, what's going to happen tonight?
yeah,
There were no bistros, there were no Thai restaurants, there
yeah.
were no 7-Elevens on the Bowery or freestanding ATMs. You
There was a
know,
gas station down there, down the block. Actually, originally in the early '80s, I remember that. But
there were dogs chained on
yeah,
in fences back then. You go to park and there'd be like this, presumably rabid dog snarling at you.
mhm.
And you don't know if you're going to get knifed, And sometimes when I got a little older and, less adventures, I'd take a cab, take me to CB's. They drop me off 3 blocks away and go, good luck.
Yeah. See you later. Yeah. I know. I think about that now. Like I said, I was literally 13 years old, and my parents, they weren't there. They were like, "Okay, see you." You know.
Yeah, exactly. Bringing it back to the slice 'em ups. One thing I definitely wanted to get into, which could be interesting to some of the more metal leaning people who I know watch this channel. Um, Angel from Demolition Hammer plays on the EP, and he's
Yeah.
played with you in the past, of course.
I
He was in
prefer
our
to.
band for a
I
long
prefer.
time.
I prefer to think of him as Angel from Chesty Malone.
Yes.
But yes, no, yeah.
Demolition Hammer's a second because he was in our band
He
first and
was.
longer.
He was in our band first when we first moved to Brooklyn in 2008 from Staten Island. He was our drummer for a few years, and he played on our Torture Rock LP and a couple of our 7-inch EPs after that.
Which in Angel's words is our Danzig 2 record.
Torture Rock is our Lucifuge, according to
Yeah.
Angel, which is also Danzig's second album, obviously, too. I can't disagree, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Angel was a neighborhood dude, and we all hung out at Lucky 13 Saloon, the original one on 13th Street
He
and
was
Fifth Avenue.
literally in like 10 bands.
He was every band that was associated with Lucky 13. Angel was in that band at one point. But I don't think he was as strongly into as much as he was in our band.
No,
he didn't make albums or
no, we
do
like
tours or anything.
toured and stuff
Yeah.
with him. Yeah, so
And yeah, so eventually, he wasn't in our band, but we were always friends and stuff. And then yeah, he got the gig with Demolition Hammer, and he'll still do drum tracks for us.
yeah.
He's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. We in December, a couple days after Christmas of 2019, we played the, as of now, final last ever Poison Idea show
Mm.
at the Kingsland in Brooklyn, and our drummer at the time couldn't make it. So I called up Angel, and this is how good that guy is too. We hadn't played shows with him for years.
No,
And I was
but he
like,
just showed up and it was perfect.
We didn't rehearse. Yeah,
Yeah.
he showed up and played the show, and
Yeah.
it was great. Yeah,
Yeah.
that guy's a sick drummer for
Excellent.
sure. The nicest of guys too.
Sorry, I'm squirming. We played a show last night. My back is fucking killing me.
Yeah.
That's a sign of a good performance when you
Yeah.
can't say. Yeah. Well, I won't keep it too much longer, but I did want to get into what we can expect for the rest of 2024. Obviously, the new EP's been out for a bit. It's getting a great response, deservedly so.
Thank
Uh,
you.
where's the band going to be heading, say, the next 4 to 6 months?
Well, yeah, like we kind of mentioned a minute ago, we have a new drummer, Noah, and a new bass player, Ryan Axman.
He's in the video, Ryan Axman.
Yeah.
He actually played the role of bass player before he was officially our bass player. He was
Yep.
just, but he had learned the song like bam, no problem. So we were like, okay, cool. So you're our bass player now, and he was like, yeah. And we're all okay, fine.
So yeah, we've been rehearsing with those guys all summer.
Yeah, so we just played our first show with them last night, which was delightful.
Yeah, that was cool out in Belfont at Fez Records in Belfont with our friends Suburban Downgrade and Ryan's other band, a thrash metal band, 80s style called Osmium, where he actually plays guitar in that band.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm hoping now that they're broken in, we're gonna be playing a lot and hawking,
Yeah.
hawking this EP,
hawking our
hawking our
wares.
loogies around. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We played in May. We played at Skid Row Garage in York, PA. We're hoping to get back down there.
Yeah.
I've been talking to a guy who wants us to other places around Gettysburg.
Go back to New York
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so follow all our fucking stuff and you'll find the news there.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
hopefully we're gonna be doing more stuff this fall and definitely into next summer.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
He announced yesterday that he was gonna write another new EP. So
I may write a new EP. Yes, that may happen.
just because he really liked our drummer's drum sound in the room we were in, and he was like, "All right, cool, I'm gonna write some new songs." We're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
So,
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'll put all kinds of info in the video description so people can check this out. I'll definitely link the video that we talked about as well. So
Cool. Yeah. Thanks.
need to check that out. I think that's a really cool kind of representation of everything, you're doing right now, musically, visually speaking. It's a cool package. So hopefully, I will do what we can on this end to promote things moving forward.
Right on, man. Thank you.
awesome, thanks.
And the EP is out on Cleopatra Records.
Yeah.
You can get it there.
You can get it there. You can get it from ChestyMalone.com also, where we have all our other stuff too. But you can get it from CleoRex.com too.
If you order shit from us, we send lots and lots of extra goodies.
Yeah.
Not
Stickers and
to
stuff.
persuade anybody either way, obviously.
They
Get
do
it where
too.
we
They do
want.
too.
They do too. It's true.
We're
Sepp's a
buds.
good merchman.
We're good friends with
Yeah.
Dr. Sepp, the Clio mail order dude, and he
Yeah.
sends out stuff. We send him stuff to send out with if you order from them
Yeah.
with our stuff too. Yeah.
Excellent. So there are a
yeah.
lot of different ways people can track down your music.
Yeah. On all the platforms and stuff like that, for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Well, like I said, I'm a fan. I'm digging what you're doing, especially in the here and now.
Oh,
Glad
man,
that
appreciate
you you keep it going all these years. I hope that keeps going for more years. And let me know, man. We'll do this again when the next record comes out.
Cool. Yeah, we'd love to, man.
Hell
Thanks
yeah,
for
sounds
having us.
good.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, man. Definitely. We'll definitely
Love
keep
what you're doing too, man. I love the interviews and the books and stuff, man. That's awesome.
We were just gonna pulled up your pipeline video we were gonna watch. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the history of the
Yeah.
pipeline. Yeah.
Yeah. Emilio is a special cat, and still keeps the ball in the air. It's a different ball now. He's doing he's in this whole world with all this Bitcoin and stuff, and it's
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
like he gets into it in the video, and it's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but you're passionate.
Yeah, I don't know about that stuff either, man.
Yeah.
Let me ask you another question too, man. Like, have you gone to any of the OG Misfits shows over the last few years?
Yeah, I've seen a ton of them. I went to LA, I went to Chicago, Jersey.
We were at the Jersey one in 2018.
Yeah, I was at that one in
Yeah, that was
Newark.
awesome.
MSG.
Yeah.
MSG was the last time I saw them because at
Same
that
with us.
Yeah.
it's like, I love those guys. I've talked to Doyle a few times since then.
Yeah.
I still keep in touch with Graves and Chud too from the
Mhm.
other era. But after seeing him at MSG, being a Jersey guy, growing up with them, it's
Yeah.
like I'm good. Like
You can't go. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, for sure. I agree
like
with that.
Yeah.
you can't, for us, you can't get higher than that. It's like,
Yeah.
you've done it, but it seems like they're still getting gigs, and it'll probably keep getting gigs as long as they can physically do it,
Yeah.
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 How about you? You saw a few?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, we were at that, I guess it was a Prudential Center in
Yeah.
2018 in New Jersey. And
And
then
MSG.
we were at MSG also. We had gone to the night before we went to the Danzig movie premiere,
Yeah.
erotica premiere, and we actually we didn't have tickets for MSG, and I don't know if you know Maurice Devilman from the
Yeah.
Seventh House. We kind of know him, and he was talking to us, and he was like, "Oh, I guess I'll see you tomorrow." And I was like, "Yeah, probably not." He's like, "You don't have tickets," and he gave us tickets to MSG. So shout out
Thanks,
to Maurice.
Maurice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really awesome because that was a great show.
I was trying to see the last time they came through Newark,
Mm.
um, and I couldn't make it. But honestly, the main attraction for me at that show was Morning Noise.
Mhm.
Morning Noise on that bill, because that's another bunch of guys I've known.
Yeah,
But Morning Noise is doing their whole thing now, and they're doing great, and they're on Cleopatra as well.
right,
Yeah.
right. We
Yeah.
love saying we're label mates with them and Danzig and
Yeah.
stuff like that. You
Yeah,
know.
right.
Flex.
Yeah, yeah. Those guys, they did that No Values Fest back
Yeah.
in spring. That's cool for them. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool era because it seems like we mentioned earlier, there was that lull for a while with that kind of more blood and guts rock and roll.
Yeah,
But obviously now, Morning Noise has new music out. The Misfits are always going to draw attention when they come out to do something.
yeah.
Oil's always on the road. Dr. Chud, who's an upcoming guest on this channel, by the way,
Uh,
uh, he's got a ton of stuff in the works, so it kind
yeah,
of seems like things are coming back around in a lot of
yeah.
ways.
Dr. Chud is in currently in a band called the Karens, who we're
Yes.
also kind of pals with. Yeah, and I want to also say, in terms of what you're saying too, like kind of last night there was the bulk of the audience was really young, like
Really
kids
young.
at our show.
Which is new for us.
And
Which
it
is
was
funny.
really
Yeah.
cool. Like
Yeah.
that was really awesome to see
I
that.
did appreciate. I was telling him this kid came up to me after we played in like a Green Day shirt and whatever, and was like, "Your guitar player sounds like he's in the Misfits," and I was like, "Ah." I was like, "Listen to you knowing stuff. That's cool." So there's hope for the future.
Yeah, yeah.
I also really appreciated that a couple of kids were like, "Man, we just want to mosh. We just want to have somewhere to go mosh," and I was like,
You
"Me
came to the
too,
right place,
kiddo.
kid. Yeah.
Me too."
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that was
it's great to see that
awesome.
still happening.
Yeah,
I think it's as strong as it's been for years. Like I said, I think your EP is a great addition to that wave, and you guys have hung in there for a long time. So, you're helping push things forward, which I appreciate because, I'd rather go see Chesty than see some of the other bands we mentioned from New York at the start of this
yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Appreciate that, man.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
keep doing your thing, man, and you'll always get support from me.
Oh
Guarantee.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Likewise too.
Excellent. We'll
Yeah.
talk again soon.
All right, cool, man.
Awesome.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
My pleasure. Take care.
All right, have a good one.